and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. Okay, I admit it, I'm a bit in awe, because today's guest is someone I've wanted to get on The Shift for the longest time. You might know Ruby Wax as a successful comedian and presenter, one of the funniest women of her generation. Or you might know her as a mental health campaigner and best-selling author. But one thing's for sure, Ruby has been using humour to make the rest of us feel better for decades. Ruby had a breakdown after losing her job on the BBC in her 50s. Hold that thought, we'll go back to that. Determined not to go down with the career ship, she took herself off to Oxford University, where she got a master's degree in mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, was subsequently awarded an OBE for services to mental health, and has written several best-selling books about our brains. And hers. Then, last year, 12 years after her last bout of depression, she discovered she wasn't actually as well as she thought she was. Being Ruby, that was the inspiration for a new book and tour.
And it tastes really delicious too, the adrenaline kick. I'm very addicted to it. You know, nobody ever gets addicted to kale. You get addicted to things that kill you.
Ruby and I met in an office overlooking the Thames the day after a big birthday, which we will not be talking about, to discuss the journeys to find meaning, building a new emotional toolkit for the second half of your life, the secret to her 35-year marriage, and why we need to stop talking aging and start talking evolving. I was thinking when I was reading the book, I wasn't planning to start on Ed, but is your marriage your safe space? Is it your kind of if that's there, everything's fine?
Well, it's more complicated than that. We don't spend a lot of time together, and that's kind of the secret. I don't think of myself as a couple. I wouldn't necessarily invite him to do what I'm doing, you know. He finds out where I'm going by listening to me telling other people. I don't think of myself as being married, but I guess I am. But you know what I mean. I never did any of the precious stuff around it, and so it didn't get labeled, and there's no expectations.
Yeah. No, I think that's really healthy. Not now, but for pre-lockdown, for years, I lived separately from my husband during the week. But lockdown, that was different.
Well, we were separate, a little bit together, but not on the same floor.
So, where do we start?
What did you think of the book?
Do you know what? I loved the book. It was a little bit close for comfort some places.
Oh, right. Okay. Which places?
But I loved it. Well, I've had EMDR, since we're going to go there. Yeah. It was a little bit like reliving it. And do you know what? Last night, I've been down here all week, but my husband was down last night. And he had to wake me up because I was having a shouting nightmare. And I blame you.
I had a nightmare last night, too. So, ditto.
Yeah.
What was your nightmare?
Do you know what? I don't know. I don't remember. It's not the nightmare. This is way too much information. But it's not the nightmare I used to have before I had the EMDR.
Right. Okay.
I didn't dream at all. Do you dream?
Yeah, all the time, but I forget.
Because I didn't used to dream at all. So going to sleep was great because you just plunge down into this dark place.
My favorite place.
Oh, the best.
Yeah.
But if I did dream, I had this nightmare. Then I had the EMDR. And now I dream all the time and I hate it.
Oh, really?
Hate it. Yeah. It's because sleep's not restful anymore.
Oh, that's too bad. But it's not the nightmare that you used to have.
No, never have that anymore.
Well, that's good. That's worth the money.
Did your EMDR work?
Well, it did because I didn't realize I was locked in.
Yeah.
I had no idea that was something weird.
It sounds mad, doesn't it?
When you're an only child, you think everybody lives like this. I didn't think anything was unusual.
Well, you start the book, literally the first line above the beginning of the first chapter is, I spent a lifetime creating a front to give the illusion that all is well. It wasn't and it isn't. When did you realise the front had become who you were?
Well, everything is in retrospect. If I knew I was doing it at the time, I wouldn't have been able to do it. But gradually, I don't remember when, but when you stop getting fed, that infantilizing thing you get in show business, when that stops, you realize how addicted you were to it, and that's not who you were born as. And so I think probably around then, once I left TV, I started to realize, there was a front. And of course, I don't blame myself because you got nervous, in front of cameras. And so you create something because you couldn't show this. I was too scared to show people what was underneath it. And this takes years of doing shows, and in the second half, there's no script. And so I just talk to them, and they just talk to me and tell me what we're talking about now, except sometimes there's 1,000 people, and they don't mind being honest about themselves because they realize how good that feels. You don't have to be funny anymore. So the second half of my shows is the most heavenly for me.
Do you still feel the pressure to be funny, to like take the pressure off by cracking a gag?
If I'm paid, I better be funny.
Yeah. I'm not paying you. You can do anything you want.
I know. I don't have to work it. No, I don't feel the pressure of it at all. I know that if I'm in a social thing, you better talk. And I hate it, but I know we're supposed to be having this conversation now. And as long as I'm interested in you, then I'll keep talking.
No pressure.
No pressure.
My God. You can ask me questions if you want. It's like a two-way thing. I mean, it's one of the things I like about podcasts as opposed to when you do a newspaper interview, you've probably been given the headline by the editor already. And everything that you do is about basically delivering that headline back to the editor. And one of the things I like about podcasts is my podcast, I only talk to people I'm interested in, and we just have a conversation. Do you know what? And when I was reading the book, I loved all this stuff about interviewing people because I'm always fascinated in the way you interview people. And when you were talking about how you got Jim Carrey to pull his magic trick and kind of pull the tablecloth off with all the china, and it all went everywhere. Yeah. I was just thinking, oh my God, what is Ruby's tablecloth trick?
I don't have a tablecloth trick. No, he was talking about it, and I knew he couldn't do it. I mean, who can? Where you pull the tablecloth, get the most expensive cutlery and silverware from the Dorchester. And so I just encouraged him. I can't encourage madness. And it happens around me anyway. But he was exhausted because he'd been doing a junket all day and pretty pissed off. So I said, for the sake of my children, so that they can eat again, would you please be funny? But he wouldn't have done it if I didn't throw him some balls. People always say, why do you talk so much? I say, because I have to give them foreplay. Otherwise, why would they work for me?
Yeah.
You can't just sit there and expect them to switch it on. You have to play and show them how much fun you are. And then they say, let's turn it from 5 minutes into a day. And sometimes I get a sleepover.
Yeah. Would you ever go back?
No.
To interviewing? No. Well, what I took from the book, and I'm sure you'll tell me if that's wrong, do you think that, dabbling with TV again is what brought on this breakdown?
No, I could never figure it out. People have breakdowns when they win Oscars, as you know, or suicides happen when people are at the height of their career. I will never know what happened. Maybe it was coming anyway, and I just happened to do these journeys. But I know one thing is I was planning the journeys too close to each other, where I should have consolidated.
So much.
You don't go on a 30-day retreat and then do a commercial for potato chips 24 hours later after you haven't spoken, and then go on a book tour. You just don't do it. And then a week later, I had planned something else. And I was doing it as if I was doing a study, a dig, some anthropological dig, whereas these are kind of life-shaking experiences.
And you were trying to pack them all into 3 months.
Yeah. Get them all in there. But also what happened was ending up in a mental clinic, and that was a surprise to me, meant that I could find out what was wrong. So that's when the therapist came in, and she started, one is a journey down and one is a journey out. And both of them are at odd ends with each other.
In a way, your stay in the mental clinic kind of becomes is it 5th or 6th journey? 6th, because you did 4 journeys and then you did the TV show.
Yeah.
And in a way,
it's the 6th.
Yeah, it's the 6th journey.
It's a complicated thing, but it reminds me of, those documentaries where The Jinx, where it's just on one level, and then suddenly he goes into the bathroom and says, I murdered that guy, and suddenly the whole documentary spins on its head. So I think that's what the book does. I wasn't looking for madness, but suddenly, out of looking for meaning, and after this existential slap in the face, during lockdown, looking for something deeper, and then finding out I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't be deep because I was so shallow.
Packing all of those 4 trips, but it would have been 5 if Ed hadn't got ill, into that space of time. Is that a Ruby thing? I've got to be really busy and I've got to be moving the whole time and just pack it all in.
I mean, considering I do mindfulness every day, I don't think. I think I can do everything. I don't know where exhaustion kicks in. I'm starting to get it now these days. So I came back from Japan a little while ago, and that was a treat to myself. So I understand when I have to throw myself a cookie. But I don't know what pressure is because I put myself under it all the time. And it tastes really delicious too, the adrenaline kick. I'm very addicted to it. You know, nobody ever gets addicted to kale. You get addicted to things that kill you.
I was thinking I really over-identified with that. You know, I've got to be busy and I've got to do the thing and I've got to just keep going. But there's an interesting side of you because that 30-day retreat, the silent retreat, which sounded terrifying and amazing, you kind of loved that, didn't you?
I loved it. Yeah, I mean, I didn't love it the first 4 days because it's you go out of your mind, listening to your thoughts and having nothing to distract you. You could flip. But then after that, it starts to become more and more peaceful, and eventually I became adorable and had moments of like such heaven of, we were saying, of tasting the food, and the granola was orgasmic. It was the most delicious
granola
thing.
and orgasmic has never been in the same sentence ever
imagine
before.
this with your eyes like in a prayer position, because you didn't have to say to the person next to you, what do you do for a living? You could just taste it, and you could just hear things clearly, and you were just present. And that was unbelievable. Not all the time, it comes and goes, but by the 30th day, I was really interesting.
How was it being in your own head all that time?
Terrible. Terrifying. It's like arm wrestling. Eventually one arm goes down, and that's your mind. And you won, because you've disciplined it. Then you go back to real life and screw it up again.
But you went right back to real life. Like
so hard.
24 hours.
24 hours, yeah.
And the phone, I was really interested in that, the phone thing, because it felt like almost the minute you turned it on, all of that work went.
Yeah, in a way. Well, when I said yes because it was a lucrative ad, I had already destroyed it. I sold my soul to the devil. But, money's money. But I shouldn't have done that. But you can't say that makes somebody depressed. That would just make you tired.
Yeah.
Okay, big deal, get over yourself. So, again, none of this was the cause of a depression.
Up.
Maybe it was, or maybe I would be having a holiday and it would happen. That's the thing about depression. It isn't situation dependent.
No, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? Even now we're allowed to talk about mental health. There's still a sense that what have you got to be depressed about?
Yeah, but it's 1 in 4. So there will be somebody in a refugee camp, but there'll be somebody in Beverly Hills. So it's at random. Even I know that now.
Even you know that.
Even I.
You know loads about it.
But even, the shame is gone of having it.
When did the shame go?
Oh, when I started studying what the mind does.
So back when you
went
to university, to Oxford and did that.
Then I started to see, I see, it's a disease. It's like Alzheimer's. And you wouldn't say to somebody with Alzheimer's, come on, get up and find your car or the keys. So don't be so cruel because I have another disease.
Yeah, and I think it's better.
Yeah, sure, because the word depression is so ridiculous. Like you're depressed. You're not depressed. You're sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whiteout.
Yeah, and you can't function. It's not like...
You can't function.
I'm a bit tired. I'm going to stay in bed.
Yeah, or work is getting tough.
So when you had the previous big depression, so when you lost your BBC job, you make a kind of a slightly like, is it a joke, is it not a joke in the book about like, I hit 50 and like the BBC rule kicked in. Do you think that was the case?
No. Well, people used to complain about it before when I was younger, but you ignore that.
Yeah, totally.
Because
not my problem.
It'll never happen to you. And then suddenly, a man comes in and takes your job and you're lied to. And now you have no safety net. It's really appalling. But I'm so grateful that I did lose my job because then I could reinvent. And by this stage in life, I don't want to just say, I was really funny. I think you need more dignity.
Yeah.
Somebody else would go, I was really funny. End of story.
Because you had built, and tell me if this is just bollocks, because I know that I'm putting my own experience on this a bit. You had built Ruby. You kind of created Ruby. from the ashes of your childhood, really, didn't you?
That's a
I can't think of a better way to put it. Well, it literally was ashes, wasn't it, in the end? In fact, I read the bit where you put all your parents' stuff in a bag and then burn it, and then it's sold and the house is literally razed to the ground. But you created Ruby. How did you do that? Because they were all about like bringing you down.
I think you do it to spite them, so you build it brick by brick, but underneath you're still the loser that they thought you were. But just to fuck with them, I created this thing that could take them on, and it was always war. It was always war. Even in the RSC, he'd say, it was still Ruby Wax. Come on, he said your teeth were so shiny. What kind of criticism? It kept coming. He couldn't find anything else. The guy was desperate to find flaws.
Did either of them ever
No.
say they were proud?
Well, they'd sort of say it, but kind of not really. There'd be a whopper coming after that word.
Yeah, but.
Yeah. They're laughing at you, not with you, was the one that was constant. Stop mocking your parents. This isn't funny.
Oh, I'm sorry, it was.
Well, they were trying to take it away, and Alan Rickman was trying to build it up. And they'd have to take him on, which they did.
He could handle that.
Well, he'd say, Miss Wax, she's very talented. And go, come on, she's a kook. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It all ended happily.
Yes.
Fucked up but happy. That's a good title for a book.
But you had built, that's the next one.
That's the next one.
So you'd built Ruby up and you'd done those amazing interviews on the BBC and lost the job. Did your identity go out the window at that point? Because I know that for me, I was a magazine editor, and when that stopped, I just didn't even know who I was anymore. Was that the case for you?
Well, I think I ended up in a mental hospital, yeah. But before I went in the mental hospital, I was already at school studying to be a therapist. I was never going to be one, but I just needed an occupation, and I could switch in a minute. Got my books, I went to school, I had lunches with all my new girlfriends, and I became a student really quickly. Then I broke. Now, again, did it happen because of the job, or was it just time for the depression? I'll never know, because I've had depression when I've been really happy. I was having a baby. It was my third one, and I end up in an institution again.
Really?
Yeah. Way back. So tell me about that. You have it when you're really happy, too.
Yeah, it's not.
It's indiscriminate.
So when you were writing the book, at what point did you... Well, I suppose the book, it just changed itself, didn't it?
It changed itself.
It changed itself.
Because I had all these journeys I was going on, and I'd write them down. It was kind of Adrian Gillish. They were funny. But, it would be a pretty shallow book. And then something happened. And it was really late in the day that it happened. And then somebody said, that's a really interesting book to write from a mental institution.
Did you pull any punches? Did you feel like it's too expensive? I mean, you were always honest, but is there anywhere you wouldn't want to go in that process?
Well, as long as it was funny, too. If it was real wank job, which might come out, unless I do some editing, then it's every book that I'm sent every day of how much torture there is and how suffering, and you want to go, sweetheart, you need some talent or comedy or something to genuinely make this interesting. Even Matt Haig or This Is Gonna Hurt. If you wrote it straight, it's a whine. It's a whine.
Yeah, you don't read, I mean, I inhaled it. And you don't inhale a book that is just like, just gonna...
Cut
makes
your
you want to
throat,
kill me. Yeah, just
yeah. I mean, look at One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's a masterpiece because it's so funny. Yeah.
I was really interested in what you said about trauma, though, that when the therapist said to you that you had unresolved trauma, you thought, I haven't been to Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's an Oprah word.
Yeah.
Trauma is a very word du jour these days, so I didn't want to have that.
You so do, though.
Well, I know, but I didn't know when it started. But I still feel embarrassed saying I have trauma. I'm quite proud of depression. Yeah. But trauma I find it tricky.
When you had the EMDR, and just at any point, just say, fuck off, Sam, I'm not answering that. Was the EMDR revealing things that you didn't know?
I still don't understand how it works. I mean, I've studied neuroscience. I don't know, there is no left side, right side. We know it's much more complex. I mean, there is two sides, but one isn't in charge of this and one is in charge of that. So I never studied it. I don't know how it works and the cord is out. So I always rolled my eyes at it. But I've had therapy before that for a long time, and it never hit that. So who am I to say? Never hit those levels.
Yeah. I mean, it made a difference to me, but who knows why?
Who knows why? Maybe it was just a better shrink.
Yeah.
Were you following the ball going back and forth?
I did it in person, and we did it with those paddles.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
They're kind of like little electrical paddles, and you close your eyes and you follow the...
Really?
Yeah.
What, it gives you a shock?
No, it buzzes from side to side. So it's kind of the equivalent of watching the ball.
In your hand?
In your hand.
Yeah, because you're teasing your brain.
And then you close your eyes, and then you basically your eyes still... Yeah.
Interesting. But why would that be?
I thought it was a right old load of bollocks.
I still do, but some people talk about it. So who am I to say?
You're probably more qualified to say than...
No, I'm not. I mean, we just have a very basic idea of how your mind works. It's like the foothills. So who knows about why that would work?
You still studying?
I was studying when I was writing the other books.
Mm.
So I'm not studying now. But I'd like to again.
I'm really interested in the reinvention aspect of the book and of you. Do you think you use reinvention a bit as part of the kind of busy?
It could be, but again, we don't know. It could be because you're getting more and more interesting. Because some people decide to stick the way they were when they were 30 and it becomes a tragedy. So I think you have to adjust. And I was dragging my heels because I didn't want to be this age. And I don't want to act like I am this age. So the end of the book is kind of alarming, where you say you have to let go of the ropes. You can't keep swimming against the tide. And it doesn't mean like that I go, oh, I'm too scared to go down the stairs. I would take up parachuting. I don't have any physical pain. And I just came back from Japan, where we hiked through the Ninsendo Valley. Now, I'm not a hiker, but I thought, do not, say I can't do this. So reinvention doesn't mean letting go, literally. It just means keeping your eyes open for what's coming.
Are you still quite driven by the, don't say I can't do this? That I can climb a 15,000-foot mountain.
Sort of, but I knew that Madagascar thing. Nobody thought I could do that. And they were all taking bets on how many days I'd last.
Bastards.
I know. And of course I stayed. But I wasn't doing it because I was on TV or the money was good, because it wasn't. What was interesting is what happens to your mind when you're stuck in nature and it's a disaster. And where's the pleasure and where's the pain? I just find all of that, I still do find it interesting. And that makes you stretch. But I'm not doing stupid things. Like on that island, I was eating because I said, I'm on medication. I'm not giving up my health for this.
There's a quote at the beginning of chapter 4. You cannot walk the second half of life's journey with the first half's tools.
You can't do it.
I really love that. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because that's a quote, isn't it, from a book that you were reading?
That happened to be, again, it happened to be. Everything's, what is that word? Serendipitous.
Mm.
I thought it was poignant. I never thought of that before. The point of being young in 20s and 30s is to grow the ego, is to really find, a self, even though there isn't any, an image, a mask, to push it, to put your foot on the turbo, to make it, all that status stuff is there for a reason. And then in the second half, you dissemble it and you see what's under it. I never thought of it that way, but it's liberating. Because you'd be exhausted by now if I still had to do that character. I know people that do it and it's grotesque. They're still like playing with their 30 and now they've got wrinkles and it's really ugly. It's like people taking Coke at 50. You know how it just doesn't work. So I really thought that quote was great. Unpicking it is the relief. I'm still not there, but I thought it was interesting. He was really good, those quotes that he had, isn't he?
Yeah,
Richard Rohr.
he's so
Do you know him?
interesting. No, I'd never heard of him before, but I read that and I just thought, oh my God, that's exactly it. Because so many people I talk to for the podcast, without having any of the level of insight that you've got of yourself, have been through something in their 50s or 60s or late 40s, just depending. And they might tie it to menopause or redundancy or divorce. But there's always a really big upheaval, whether professionally or personally.
There has to be, because you're now seeing there's a downhill slope.
That's not a very cheerful way of
Well,
looking
you're going
at it.
toward death. I mean, I don't really believe it. Like, I think you're going to die, but not me.
Thanks, Ruby.
Sorry, but it's not going to happen to me, because we have that as a safety net. If we really believed it, you wouldn't be able to take a foot forward.
No.
That's why I go to Japan, and now I'm just doing what I want to do. And it isn't a negative feeling. It's a great, good. I can let go now. I don't have to do anything for anybody else.
What's in your new toolkit?
To do everything I want and not feel bad about it.
How are you doing with that? Because you say
I
in the
went
book
to
that you
Japan. I don't
struggled with-
care. I'm doing what I want to do. I never went on a lot of holidays because I was so ambitious. I thought somebody'd step in my place. And I never stopped. I was burning. But you have the energy when you're young, and that's the time to do it and to create the mask. There is an ego that you're building, and then later on you realize there's no ego. You're 1,000 possibilities. I mean, it's infinite universes that are possible.
We lionize youth so much, don't we? And aging is so, we don't want to talk about it. Don't think
I'm
it's
not
gonna
talking
happen to
about
you.
when women go, I can't get up the stairs anymore. It's as boring as when people say, look, I just had a baby, and talk about them. Those stages are really there's nothing to examine. Let's take out the word aging, take out evolving, put in evolving, without being precious about it. That's more interesting. And you can do it at 30. I mean, I know 30-year-olds who are as heavyweight as you can get, and then old people know nothing.
Yeah.
They're just on repeat. They're sitting in the same old chairs. They're going to the same old things. They love their, cup of tea at 5 o'clock, and their friends come over and they watch telly. Come on, that happens at 80. My favorite expression is, at a certain age, you either turn into wine or vinegar.
Yes.
That's my favorite.
Yeah, it's like the brilliant. You're wearing a Carrie Fisher t-shirt. I love
I
Carrie Fisher.
I know.
Love
I
her.
found it in my closet. I've never worn it before.
That's serendipity. I love her so much. Postcards from the Edge is one of my favourite books.
Is there a flying saucer?
Oh,
Wow.
that is weird.
That's spooky. Let's leave it on. No, let's leave it on and we'll just play it. And we'll say we were abducted by a UFO.
Sorry, that's it. We're finished now.
That's how it ended.
And
Sure.
the Carrie Fisher quote about resentment being like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
She didn't say that.
Didn't
Buddha
she?
said that.
Who said that?
It was Buddha. That's a Buddhist
Oh, was
thing.
it?
Yeah.
Oh, and it's
she
now
would
become the
never-
Carrie Fisher quote.
She would never admit that. But it's also the second arrow. You send out the first, you feel hate or whatever, and then you send in the second, which is shame that you felt the hater. So there's all those quotes. Yeah, putting out, feeding the
But
poison
that's-
so you feel it, but you poison yourself. It's
Yeah.
Buddhist.
And the comment you just made about wine and vinegar, it's exactly that, isn't it? And it's the thing when you're writing about the 30-day retreat, which, as you can tell, was my favourite of your journeys, where you're talking about what aging is and the loss of curiosity and that kind of assumption that what you think is right, how you live is right, and that's what makes you old. And you can be like that at 30.
Yeah,
You'd be
totally.
like it at any
They
age.
get married at here's their kids, and then they have a really nice, that's death. That's old age at 30. And you could probably see it in a fMRI scanner that someday you'll see that their neurons are quite
bits
stuck.
of the brain.
Yeah, you'll see there's not a lot of synapses. Whereas when you try different things, they grow like trees. And you're more vibrant.
Are you still as obsessed with being the best and being
No, now I'm
perfect
terrified that my book is not going to... No, I'm scared.
Are you really?
Yeah. What if it flops?
It's
It'll
not going to
hurt.
flop.
Might flop.
It's not going to flop, Ruby.
All right, I'm going to call you and hunt you down.
Like,
You're going to hear from me, madam.
yeah. Do you think, because you're quite evolved, shall we say, for want of a better way of saying it, do you feel like, are you better
I don't
like,
really feel that, but
you
okay.
don't feel evolved?
No.
From outside,
Okay, good.
you seem evolved.
Good, I got an evolved hairdo.
Yeah, you've got a very evolved hairdo.
So do you.
Yeah. Will you ever go grey?
I don't know.
I think you'd look crazy with grey hair. In a good way, crazy.
I don't know. But it would be so wonderful to not have to dye your hair endlessly because it grows so fast.
Yeah, I mean, I've never dyed mine. When I started going grey, and I still have my hair done a bit more regularly than I do now, I went to the guy who did it and I said, look, I'm thinking I might need to start dyeing it. And he literally just burst out laughing and walked off. Because he was like, you can barely get your ass in this chair to have your hair cut once every 3 months. How the hell
Are you going
are
to
you
dye
going to
it?
sit through that?
But yours is good because we've gone really shallow now.
Yeah, so that's good.
Where do you get your nails done?
Yeah, I don't.
I don't either. Look,
Yeah.
and my toenails are revolting. But
Yeah.
you have the kind of Florida blonde and sort of, it's mixed in there. So you're not quite sure. Is it your imagination that there's white or is that really blonde?
Yeah, no.
So you're all right.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You can do that. Now, I want to go back to the second half thing because I think it's really interesting. How are you building a bigger container?
Should we read that quote so people know what we're talking about?
It's Richard Raw. You cannot walk the second half of life's journey with the first half's tools. You need a new toolkit. But he also talks about how you need to build a bigger container, doesn't he?
Yeah. To be able to hold all the emotions rather than, but this is very mindfulness based, is that rather than them overpowering you, suddenly in Wash's rage, then some envy comes in and people go, I don't know why that's happening. That's how I am. This thing of a bigger container is these are just weather conditions that blow in and out. So my rage isn't really directed to you. It just happened to be a hormone that switched on. And then there's anger. And so you can hold that rather than flinging it out and blaming you for why I feel so frustrated. That's your artillery. But it's not necessarily defining who you are. And so it's, I think that's what he means by bigger containers. You keep it to yourself because it's just it's the weather conditions inside. It's not reality.
Have you learned to care less about all that external shit?
Well, I still dye my hair, so you answer that.
It's true. That's true. Your daughters do funny, don't they?
Uh-huh.
How does that feel?
Well, they're not desperate like I am or was. Because
They didn't
they're
have
not
your
rebelling.
parents.
They didn't have my parents, so they're not on fire. But they do characters like French and Saunders. And both of them had really great parents. So, they're doing accuracy. They know how to do characters. That's different than standing up and creating a front. Like Jennifer is just Jennifer, who's kind of likes to muck out horse manure. And, she's just a normal girl. She just has a talent, as does Dawn, to imitate. So they have that too. They imitate really well with comedy in every fiber.
Do you think you're putting yourself down a bit?
No, I can't do characters. I became the character. There's no question. Now I can do some characters, but never as good as them.
Say the BBC phoned you up, or Netflix.
They do. I mean, they do call and offer stuff.
And you never
Netflix
say yes.
doesn't. And I haven't said yes yet.
Would you like to bring back Ruby Wax Meats?
No, because who would I interview? I had days with people.
Harry Styles. Go and
You
spend
don't
a day
think
with
there-
Harry Styles.
You don't think there'd be a PR standing by and saying you've got 3 more minutes?
Not usually.
Yeah, but they
Proper.
won't do it anymore.
No, that's a nightmare,
They
isn't it?
won't do it. You'd have to be Graham Norton and sit at a table and either be funny or something. I never had to. There were no rules. I could go as long as I wanted.
Yeah, the kind of glory days. Do you remember like magazines like Details? You used to, literally spend a week with Madonna.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like,
That was my pleasure.
that's the goal.
That's the gold, and because you get all sides of their personality. I always said, show me the heavy stuff and show me the light. And they do, unless they're just comedians and they want to be funny. I'm not going to stop them.
Tell me a bit more about mindfulness, because I am a bit of a mindfulness refusenik. Because how did you learn to stop your brain?
You don't. See, that's the
mistake.
That's the mistake. Is that I like the science of it. That's why I did Oxford. Is that it's just like learning piano or learning how to do sit-ups. Is that you're strengthening certain areas of the brain so that you do have more focus. I mean, if you can see that in a scanner, there's now millions of research papers. You do have more focus and you pay more attention. There's an ACC in your brain. It strengthens. You get more neurons in that area, just the way you learn piano, so that you're able, not 100%, you can't always play Rachmaninoff, but you can be more aware of what's going on. That's why this book is kind of weird, is that depression snuck up on me. I'll always have depression. If you have more than 3 episodes, chances are you've got it for life. But I should have known it was coming, because I haven't had it for 12 years. I can feel the tip when it tiptoes on me, and then I'll shut off everything and go somewhere, because I know my temperature's going toward my tipping point. This time I didn't spot it. So I'm not going to get angry at myself. It just happened. And maybe I got a book out of it.
Definitely you got a book out of it.
But mindfulness is an exercise that you do just the way you would want a six-pack. You don't shut off your thoughts.
How do you do it?
Well, I can't explain it now. But how do you get a six-pack? You lie on the floor and you get up. You lie on the floor and get up. So with mindfulness, you're almost using 2 muscles. But I'd have to go into physiology, and that gets a little complicated. But it is an exercise. It isn't, for me, I'm not a Buddhist, and it isn't some, sitting on a gluten-free cushion with your eyes rolled back. It's something that really benefits for somebody who wants to be focused and be able to pull down their anger. And I have to say, I've got a handle on that anger.
I was going to say, how is your anger?
It's really diminished. I mean, I can feel it inside because I got a flick switch, but I can disperse it pretty quickly. Or if I let it out at somebody, I'll know to apologize pretty quickly because it really wasn't their fault. But if somebody mugged me, I could pull a knife. See what I mean? You don't lose your animalistic or your fight and flight. You need that. But a lot of times it's inappropriate, and you'll just get poisoned by it. Because I used to really feed it. Not only did you give somebody your anger, but then you call every friend you've got to reenact it so you can get more juice. And there's Carrie Fisher's, you're poisoning yourself expression.
That's so true, isn't it? Because when you said that, I immediately thought, that's what I do. It's not the thing, it's the reliving the thing.
It's the reliving. It's a second arrow.
Do you practice Buddhism as well?
No. I know a little bit about it, but I can't remember the words. There's just too many vowels, and it just ends with just babbling for me. But I got the idea, and Jung used a lot of Buddhism, so it's not such a precious thing. That was very practical. It was a philosophy. It wasn't a religion. And what he said was true, but so did Marcus Aurelius. And I wouldn't say I'm a follower of that. Or Carrie Fisher. You could believe in her.
I could believe in her.
I could believe in her, too. Did you mention I had her T-shirt on?
I did, okay. And I will mention it. And I'm quite jealous, actually.
She gave it to me. That's what's so good about
it. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Because I was looking for your interview with her on YouTube, and I couldn't find it, but there is an interview you did with her in LA.
Oh, I did one in England when I first met her. That was my wooing.
Of all the people that I would have loved to have met, I think that's the person I'm most jealous of.
Carrie. I should be jealous.
And I love that you don't even pretend. Like, no, you should know, it's not all that.
No, it's that good.
She's properly great. So towards the end of the book, you say that you wanted to meet a wise woman. What would someone have to be to qualify as a wise woman?
Well, Elena Bottom Carter, Helena's mother, is a wise woman. She is. She just makes me stop in my tracks. And she's over her fear of death. And there's no question she is. And so I think that's a wise woman.
Can you imagine getting there yourself?
No, she's really free.
Where do you think that freedom came from?
She's got insight, and that's God-given. She's got real insight. She was my shrink.
Of course.
So, she's steps ahead.
Can you see yourself embracing your crone years?
No, I can't. And I don't want to, really. I don't see myself as a sex or an age or religion. I don't stand for it. I don't feel it.
Several times it comes up in the book about fleeing and moving and not being comfortable in your own home once the kids had left. Have you managed to...
No, I still flee. Yeah, I still flee, and I will continue fleeing. I just don't like being in my home, but I don't feel bad about it. I'm not homey, why would I be? I came from fleers. We don't build homes.
But you have a home, and you've had a home for a long time.
Yeah. But if it left tomorrow, and I'm thinking of leaving it, I haven't got a sentimental thing. I almost want to dump everything I've got and live with my suitcase. I don't like getting dressed up. I only like wearing one thing for a long time.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
It's like when you see people on Instagram posting outfits of the day and all that rubbish, I just think, but my outfit of today is the same as my outfit of yesterday. Is the same
and they really crap, the outfits. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love that the most.
I made a conscious decision to do the bloke thing, of like, actually, I just want to wear...
I have one outfit. This is not my outfit. I wear
dressed
jeans.
Up especially for me?
No, because I'm doing a thing tomorrow, and I thought I was leaving from here.
Oh.
I dressed up for that.
Sam.
Yeah.
I thought it was for me.
Maybe I did a little for you. The socks are for you.
The socks are good.
Socks are good.
The socks are good. There's a point in the book when you lose your TV job and you say you felt invisible again, like before your career took off.
Mm.
How do you feel now?
I mean, I just came back from Japan. I feel really good. I made friends with my group. We were put together, and I became best friends with them. And I like when I suddenly have a whole new existence. I mean, they just didn't identify with anything I'd done in the past. And I love when that happens, because everything's possible. They don't peg me. I mean, one guy knew I was a comedian, but that quickly passed. And I was probably funnier than I am on television because I was so happy.
But in terms of visibility in the world...
I've never been visible in America or Europe, and nobody looks at me anyway.
Do you think of yourself as a comedian now?
No, I know I can write comedy, but I'm not anything. I'm really curious. That's what I am.
And then that is why you're quite ageless, because you're curious.
That could be.
I think. Cool. Okay, I am going to ask you the questions.
I love your jewelry.
Oh, thank you.
Where's that necklace from?
Do you know what? That one is from John Lewis.
No.
Yeah, it was like bargain basement. But actually, Jigsaw...
Did you put the ring on it?
No, that's how it came. And then that one is...
it's a different thing.
Porte. Yeah. But Jigsaw...
And that's expensive.
I've got... I think it was about 100 quid. Honestly, go to Jigsaw because they've got a couple of necklaces. It's really like this right now.
They have to be both of them.
Yeah.
They have both of them.
Do you know what? When we're finished, I'll get the phone out and I'll show you online.
All right. Because that's really good.
Thank you. You can emulate that.
I will copy you.
That's all right. That's good. I'm flattered. I'm still going to ask you the questions I always ask at the end. What's your emotional age?
35.
35?
Yeah.
And why is that? Was that a great time? Was it?
My kids were babies, I think. And so that was a great time, because I knew I was going to have 3 of them so that they wouldn't be only children, which is to me torment.
Did you plan that?
Yeah, I said I'm going to have a few. So they're witnesses to any madness that they see.
That's true. So they're a unit.
Yeah. And they laugh at me. They laugh at my madness. Whereas if it was just one, they'd be frightened. part of the problem is I don't know what was my imagination, because my parents said it's your imagination. So
They
I don't
gaslit
know.
you, basically.
Gaslit, yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to digressing a bit. Do you still not know, or do you trust your own mind?
Now I
with your
do,
childhood?
but when I get sick, yeah. I think so. I'm not sure. No, I can't say 100%. I might have made some stuff up, but I don't know what. Ed says they're as bad as I thought. And Ed's a really nice guy. He said they were terrible.
I mean, I only know about your parents what I've read in your books. I'm sorry, fuck me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good, isn't it? Yeah. Well, you got material.
Yeah.
You're fucked up, but you got material.
It's the way to look at it, I guess. Can you give us a book recommendation? So it could be a book that has been like really significant to you over the years, or it could just be a good book you read lately.
A Fine Balance is my favorite book.
Rohinton Mystery.
Yeah.
What is it about?
I don't know. I can't remember. But the characters, it's very Altman-esque, how they weave in and out, and everybody's interesting. But you know what's happening now? I read books, but I don't remember what they're like, so I can reread them. I'm reading Animal now, and I'm loving it. But I know I read it.
It is kind of awful when you start reading a book and you get about a third of the way through and you think, oh, I have read this before.
Yeah, I know. But my favorite book of all is it The Setup by Paul Beatty, who won the Booker?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's the greatest book. That's
I've
Philip
never read
Roth
that.
on ice. Yeah.
I've never read any of his.
and intellectual at the same time.
What advice would you give younger women?
Not to act like women, just to be themselves.
Good advice. Good advice.
I just made that up.
Would that advice have made a difference to you?
I never acted like a woman. I mean, whatever your image is. I never flirted. I scared men. I was fucked up. But I think if you are play acting, you're going to pay the bill at some point. You're playing femininity. If you're a natural, fine. But if you're playing it, you're going to get screwed later.
I've never played it because I've never had it.
I haven't had it either.
Like that.
Yeah. Maybe I'd like it.
You would like it?
Maybe. Who knows? Like I'd like getting underpants and all that kind of stuff. I was never girly.
No. Was that a reaction to your mum?
No, she was quite girly.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean. Was it like a...
I don't think so. You can't say that. The next kid would have been exactly the opposite.
What's your superpower?
I don't know what that means. You don't either.
Not really. I don't know what mine is.
I think your jewelry, and we have to Google it.
We're going to do that
and I
right
need
now.
to buy it pretty quickly.
Okay, we're going to do that. I'm just going to ask you my last question. How many fucks do you give?
I don't really.
Give any?
I don't really care.
Don't care.
Unless it's right in front of me. And then I'll do whatever it takes. But I think you have to take care of your mental health first before you can touch the environment or touch politics. You really have to have some insight. Otherwise, you're polluting everything. So I care about mental health. And then I think, well, then let the next thing take care of itself. Rather than sitting around babbling at a dinner party, just do it.
I think that's actually a really good bit of advice as well.
Mm.
And so I'm meaning like post midlife or whatever you want to call it. Now is the time to stop babbling about it.
Yeah, just do it. If you care so much. Okay,
That's
thank
brilliant.
you.
Now
we're online. You'll give me the link. I love your jewelry.
Thank you for listening. You can hear a new episode of The Shift each Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you hear, please do rate, review and follow, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to support The Shift further, please consider becoming a member of our community. Find out more at steady.media/The Shift.